0 to 60 can define a performance car, but it's the fastest 60 to 0 that's the aim of Tarok's brakes. From road cars to race cars, circuits, special stages, or the autostrada, nothing reduces speed like Tarok's brakes. Italy gave the world the art of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. Tarok's has given drivers the art of stopping. For more information and to acquire your own masterpiece, visit tarox.co.uk. Yes, it's me, Mark Stone, and this is the Backseat Driver Podcast. I'd like to welcome to today's Backseat Driver radio show a young chap called Mark Purnell. I follow Mark on Facebook because he's just done something that's always intrigued me. He's just built an Austin 7 Special. Mark, welcome to the Backseat Driver radio show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, looking at your Facebook page, before we touch on the special you've just built, vintage cars have been your life in many ways, and your father's and everything else. Just run us through how all this came about.
Well, I guess I've been doing it pretty much since birth, really. I'm very lucky to have grown up in a family that's been involved in vintage cars, even to the extent that my primary school was chosen for me because the headmaster had an Austin 12, so we're going to that school and not anything else. And I know my father's got photographs of me pretty much as a toddler, barely able to walk, holding a ratchet spanner and leaning against the running board on the Austin 12 as he was building it. So it's been a family sort of family journey, I suppose you'd call it. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, you've got to say that's the proper reason. You don't pick a school for its academic achievements, but the headmaster's got a vintage car. So, I mean, that's got to be the best reason going, hasn't it? That.
Oh, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Well, the guy's name was Jeff Walker. I mean, he was quite known in the Austin world. So, I mean, it was obviously going back a few years now, nearly 50 years. But there may be some people out there that still remember the Walker family that were into the Austins and what have you. But yeah, so that's basically how it started. Playing around with Dad's Austin 12, and then he also made an Austin 7 single-seater special whilst I was growing up. And he was working very hard. He was in the police force. He actually was chief superintendent of the police, so he didn't have much time to work on it. So I remember just as a young lad sitting in the garden shed in the remains of this Austin 7 Special he was building for many years, sort of 5-6 years old, dreaming of driving it to school. Sort of things.
It was one of those projects that eventually will get finished, but you were never sure when.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, I think he finished it. I was in my late teens when he did finish it. The car is still about. It's not quite in the same form as it was when he built it originally, but it came to be a very successful car in the end. It ended up in the hands of a chap called Michael Fitzmaurice, who actually took most of the records on most of the hill climbs in Britain with it, and still holds most of the records with it. So nothing that we did to the car. He developed it greatly after we sold it. My dad sold it, but yeah. So it's always been something in my life. That's right.
And of course, the other thing is that your father built was a Riley 9.
Yes, which we still have. That again was about must be nearly 20 years ago now. Or probably more than that, maybe a little bit longer than that. I remember going with him again. I was probably, I guess, 12, 14 years old. We drove up to Sheffield. I know you're obviously up in the north, but we're down in the south in Buckinghamshire. I remember driving up to Sheffield with him to pick up the remains of this Riley 9. Well, the Merlin, and it had the body on it. Well, I say the body was on it. The body had sort of was hanging on it.
Yeah, it was just propped on it really to show the body went with that chassis.
That's right. Yes, and as we tried to winch it on the trailer, it all just completely collapsed. So we just came back with the chassis and the engine and what have you. And over the years, we've been campaigning that. In the early days, my father and I both used to race it. But he's got a bit older now. Bless him, he's in his 80s. So he's decided to hang up his racing gloves a few years ago and has handed me the steering wheel. And we've developed the car quite considerably just recently, in fact, and it's now actually going very well. It's probably, I think we can claim it's the fastest Riley 9 on the circuit at the moment.
Right.
and it's won many awards over the last couple of years. And yes, it's a great pleasure to drive, and it's a great pleasure to work on.
But I mean, that's the thing about vintage cars. I mean, if you look at the past history of vintage cars, or when vintage cars weren't vintage cars, they were current cars. A lot of them, besides being, shall we say, family transport, at weekends took part in trials and hill climbs and everything else. It wasn't unusual for a vintage, what is now today a vintage car, to have done all sorts of things in its history, and nobody looks upon this as being unusual.
That's correct, yes, exactly.
Now, of course, we move forward a little bit, and as I said, you decided it was for your son, really, to build an Austin 7 Special of your own.
That's right, yes. So, 3 years ago, in fact, well, you probably saw yesterday as I put on Facebook, it was actually 3 years ago, yesterday, I put a little note on Facebook. I mean, good old Facebook, it's amazing what you can bore people with, but amazing what you can find. Can somebody help my 15-year-old lad, we'll see 15 at the time, get into racing, because he wanted to do that. Unfortunately, he's now old enough now, but at the time he wasn't able to drive the Riley, because you have to have a different type of licence because of the power of the car, and they changed the licensing laws. So we thought, well, we'll get him a little Austin 7. So I put a play out on the Facebook pages, and Austin 7 as sites and what have you. And a very kind chap in Salisbury contacted me, saying he had an engine, gearbox, front and rear axle, various other bits and bobs for my son. And if I wanted to drive down to Salisbury to get it, I can have it for free.
I mean, what did that Austin 7 start life as? Because all Austin 7 specials, unless you happen to be wealthy enough or fortunate enough to have an Ulster, most Austin 7 specials never started life in the form that they're now in.
No, exactly. I mean, well, as it came to me, I mean, I've got a Toyota Hilux pickup truck. We threw all the bits in the back of that. So it was just literally a pile of bits.
Yeah.
It didn't even have a chassis. The chassis itself, actually, again, there's another story to that, if you like. My father, back in the probably early 80s, middle 80s, his best friend who lived in the village with him, they're again, both into their vintage cars. This chap's name was David Marchant, and his son, Ben Marchant, is still around now doing vintage stuff.
Yeah.
But I knew that my father and David had been working on an Austin 7 chassis that they were going to build up alongside the Austin 7 my father previously built.
Yeah.
But sadly, David became ill and died very early of cancer, and the chassis went to Ben.
Yeah.
And I rang Ben and said, "Have you still got the chassis that your dad and my dad had been trying to build many years ago?" And he said, "Oh no, I've sold it to another chap," which he gave me the number for. So I rang him up and I said, "Have you still got the chassis?" He said, "Yes, it's sitting in the loft."
Well, that's the one thing. They're not exactly a big thing, aren't Austin 7 chassis, are they?
No, exactly. So, but the nice thing was, it was something that's kind of loosely been in the family for years, if you see what I mean. It wasn't just an Austin 7 chassis. It was an Austin 7 chassis that had connections to my father and Ben's father. So I thought it'd be quite nice to actually get hold of that one to put the bits on that I had. And actually make the car that my father and his friend were planning on making all those years ago. So that's kind of where it came from.
So you got the chassis, you got all the bits and pieces. I mean, where do you begin building one? Because I mean, it's like I've just said, the Practical Classics magazine, as a bit of a celebration, have reproduced the very first Haynes manual, and the very first Haynes manual, which was more or less a little typed up thing. I mean, the history of that little manual is fascinating. Is how to build an Austin 7 Special. So where do you, because you look at that and you think, right, where do you start?
Well, I think originally, the initial part, obviously, I didn't have any manuals. Well, actually, I tell a lie, I did have one sort of manual I have got. There is an old book, again, which is loaned to me by my father. I forget the exact title now, but it is basically something on the lines of how to build a 7 Special. Yeah. Well, I've called 7 Special, something like that anyway. It's got an orange cover. So I had that. But the main start of it was the fact that myself, I'm 6 foot just under 6'5", 6'4".
Yeah.
My son's obviously going to be not that far behind me. So the first thing we did was just to put the chassis on the ground and work out actually where we're going to be able to sit and fit in. They're not a big car.
I can vouch for that, because the one that I drive that belongs to a good friend of mine called Andy Jones is a little box saloon. I'm 6 foot, Andy's 6'4", and when we go out in it, it's definitely, when we're in it, it's not so bad. It's surprisingly spacious, though I do have to peep down under the windscreen to see out. But we look a little incongruous, 2 6 foot and 6 foot plus climbing in this tiny little car.
That's it. Yes. So anyway, that was the first bit, and then after that, I guess I did the mechanics, I suppose, first. I built another car previous to the Austin, which I showed you was a Morris Cowley, which I built the body first and I did the mechanics. But this way, I did the Austin the other way around, actually. I got the actual running gear, the engine, basically a rolling chassis, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah.
Going first. In fact, we actually Ben, my son, drove the car itself without any bodywork on it at all to start with. So it's kind of just, and I think weather dependent as well, because I've got a small farm here, but I haven't got a huge amount of space to work indoors, so a lot of the work on the car has been done outside.
Yeah.
So if it's raining, I've been working in the garage and doing mechanical bits that I can do off the car, and then obviously do the bodywork. And I can get outside and do it. So I think I actually, there was no particular plan as such. It was just to get it going, I think.
Yeah.
Just driving the blooming thing. So,
I mean, like the engine and the axles and everything else, did you have to strip them down, or were they, shall we say, ready to go, or were they of an age where you thought, well, I'd better strip them down and see to them before anything else?
The engine, well, that is a story itself. The engine that came with the pile of bits that I bought initially, the only thing left in the car now is, so with an Austin 7 you have a crankcase, then you have an engine block, and then you have a cylinder head, so it's 3 separate pieces.
Yeah.
So the head and the block were okay. I had to have the block has been rebought, obviously, and a lot of broken studs in it, so that went away to be, my machine skills weren't up to be able to take out all the broken studs because they was just too badly broken.
Yeah.
And also because I'm going to be racing the car, or hopefully racing the car, my son is, we've done some mods to the inlet valves and what have you, so the seats have been opened up where the valves, to the inlet valves, which is an Austin 7 trick.
Yeah.
But that all had to be done on a proper machine jig.
Because just butting in, perchance you don't know, the Austin 7 gets its name 7 from the fact it was 7 horsepower, which was, shall we say, it was like a tax dodge in many ways, because anybody who had a big engine got taxed very heavily. So if you only had a little horsepower, you didn't get much taxation. So, but to make them go, you have to breathe on them a bit, don't you?
Exactly, yes. So I've done, well, hopefully what most of the racing guys have done. I've obviously, whilst I've been in the paddock with the Riley, I've been asking people what they've been up to and what the tricks of the trade are. So hopefully I've managed to do that with this one. But then, unfortunately, the crankcase itself, it's aluminium. Obviously, over time, aluminium corrodes. And the one tricky thing on the Austin 7 engine is, again, it's not really tricky, it's just fiddly. The camshaft has to fit through 3 bearings.
Yeah.
One either end, which is easy, because they're just a bronze bush. But one in the middle are little roller bearings, and it fits inside a housing, which you have to fiddle in with your fingers to push the camshaft through.
Yeah.
So the original crankcase that came with the engine, I put it all together. It was just to put the block on the crankcase, and was tightening up the block, and I just heard this dink, and the surround of the centre bearing, which is the aluminium casting in the case, snapped off.
Yeah. Oh.
It was completely corroded. That was one of those B moments. And unfortunately, I got hold of another one, and it did the same again.
Right.
So I'm on the 3rd crankcase now, but that seems to be old. It's not the same crankcase, but yes. No, so the mod wise of it, it's, as I say, it's had the inlets opened for the valves, so they're almost touching exhaust valves, but that's apparently what we do.
Yeah.
It's got very lightweight racing pistons, which are again half the size of what they would normally be.
Yeah.
And I've also fitted what they call a Phoenix crank.
Now that's the favourite. That appears to be the key to most things, is a Phoenix crank, which is a modern crank, really, isn't it?
It is, yes. They're firm based down in Slough, and I've used them a few times. But there's a Phoenix in the Riley, and there was a Phoenix in the Singer I made. And I just called them up and said, could I possibly have a crank and rods? And they make them in batches. So,
right.
At the time, I had to wait about 6 months for that, but they do, just because it was bad timing on my part. I rang them just after they'd sold it. But other than that, they are fairly readily available.
Yeah.
But because obviously with the Austin, it's only a two-bearing. Well, this engine's only a two-bearing crank. So you obviously get the flex in the middle with the standard crank, and you can end up obviously racing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can end up throwing something through the side of the engine, which is not obviously ideal.
No. But I mean, that's the other thing about, from what I can gather about Austin 7s, most of the parts are actually readily available, especially for the engine and things like that.
That's right, they are. I mean, there's several firms out there now. There's a guy called Dave Cochran who's got Austin 7 spares, and there's a couple of other Austin 7 people that are doing spares. So you could almost virtually probably build a new Austin 7 from, virtually, with new parts. It's amazing how much is out there, and what's not out there, it's amazing how much the skills of other firms that can make you other things that need to be made if needs be. You know?
Yeah. So after you've done the engine, I mean, you then move on to the gearbox, and the one thing I know about an Austin 7 gearbox is it'll either drift into gear like a hot knife through butter, or you can play various tunes on it whilst it decides it might let you engage your cog. That's correct, yes.
I mean, luckily enough, the gearbox that came with my set of spares, well, certainly at the moment, touch wood, another lane, seems to be, I mean, I took it all completely apart, and just replaced a couple of the bearings inside it. But other than that, the gears themselves actually seem, for its age, in reasonably good condition. So,
well, it's got to be the most robust gearboxes I've ever driven, because, as I said, you play tunes on these things, and they never seem to complain.
No, that's right. Yes, yeah. As I say, it's a pretty good, as you say, robust. I mean, I've got a 4-speed box in the special I built now, and obviously they come in a 3-speed as well. But as I say, yes, no, I mean, I took it apart expecting to see all sorts of horrors and nightmares, because it was really, obviously it wasn't rusty because it's aluminium, but it was covered in crud and mud. And I was expecting to open it up and have the similar experience on the inside. But no, it seems remarkably to survive the test of time.
Yeah, so basically the gearbox in the special is a standard gearbox then?
Yes.
Right.
So, again, I've spoken to various people who do the racing with me. Obviously, with my Riley, I do hill climbs and sprints with it, so it's an 1100 supercharged, so it's in what they call Class 13. Yeah. Which is the same as what the Austin 7 racing car is in.
Right.
So I've got a lot of competition in my Class 13, which are Austin 7s. So I've interrogated.
Have you not raised any suspicion? Why is a man that races Riley's pestering us about Austin 7s?
Exactly. I've questioned quite a few of my fellow competitors. And to be honest with you, I mean, the Riley's going, as I say, it's going like the proverbial, but what's knocking on my door of the Riley are Austin 7s. Yeah. And I've been beaten a couple of times by Austin 7s. And the consensus seems to be, well, certainly for the hill climbing at least, is to leave the gear ratios as standard.
Yeah. Right.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, many years ago when I was a small lad, my very first car was an Austin Ruby. Yeah. Which when I was 15 I bought from a dealer called David Baldock as a barn find. It hadn't been on the road since the late 40s, and I restored it as best I could as a 15, 16-year-old and got it registered, and that was my first car. I drove around in that, but I could get 55 miles an hour out of that with the wind behind me on a downhill. So I thought, well, that was a standard Ruby, and the gear ratios I've got in the special now are the same as the standard Ruby. Yeah. So obviously the engine is going to be revving higher than the standard car, the standard engine. So, so from what people are telling me, it sounds to be about right. It will pull, it will also rev more, so it will obviously be quicker than the standard Austin 7.
Now, I mean, the favourite thing is as well. I conclude you've fit an alternative carburettor to it to make it draw a bit more in.
Yes, I've got an SU carb on it now, other than the standard downdraft carburettor it would have had. So it should be getting a little bit more fuel in than standard.
Yeah. Then, of course, we move on to the ever-thorny subject of the Austin 7's brakes. Well, I had the best description a few weeks ago at Mallory Park with an Austin 7 guy. He said, all Austin 7s have ABS fitted. Anything but stop. Having driven my friend's car, and his has the better brakes, which means when you hit the pedal, basically, all contorting wires and twisting axles operate on all four brakes at once, and of course if you really realise that you aren't stopping, you yank the handbrake on as well, but they are notorious for not stopping.
That's correct, yes. A few years ago I borrowed, as I said previously, my father's friend David Marchant, who sadly passed away. He had a Austin Chummy. He kindly let me use it for the Herefordshire trial a few years ago. And my father was my bouncer, and we were driving down, I forget which little village town it was now, and there was a tractor coming the other way, and I put my foot on the brakes, and the foot just went straight to the floor, and we just carried on going.
Yeah.
The bank works as very good as a brake.
Yeah.
But no, I've cheated. I've done the cheat with the special, and I've converted it to hydraulic brakes, which is again is quite a common thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's basically all early Morris Minor parts.
Yeah.
Will fit the Austin. So it's got a Morris Minor master cylinder.
Yeah.
Connected up to Morris Minor wheel cylinders. Had to change the back plate slightly to accommodate the cylinders. But other than that, and you have to also box in. You have the radius arms.
Yeah.
That go from front axle to the centre. It's a good idea to box those in, otherwise they can twist.
Yeah.
And they're not used to actually working. So this one it will actually, we've got it so if you push on the brake pedal hard enough, it will lock up the fronts and equally the rears as well.
Yeah.
It's a racing con trick.
Yeah.
I suppose you would call it. That safety comes. I mean, at the end of the day, as I was building the car, I was very conscious that I'm actually building it for my youngest son to drive. So as much as sometimes it irritates me, I don't want to kill him.
And then not long ago, bodywork. I mean, on Austin 7 specials, it's a case of really anything goes. I mean, you look at some of them, and I've seen bodywork in plywood, I've seen bodywork in aluminium, I've even seen bodywork in thick cardboard.
Yes, and obviously fabric is another.
Yes.
But yes, no, I've gone for the aluminium option.
Yeah.
I made a very lightweight frame to attach the aluminium to. I was toying with just actually making the whole thing out of slightly thicker aluminium. Yeah. And that wouldn't need a frame. But then I thought, well, things do happen. It is possible that it could turn over or something horrible.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll make it with a frame, because if anything did happen, then obviously I don't want it to flatten itself on top of whoever's driving. So I made a tubular frame, which actually my son Ben welded up. He's a much better welder than I am.
Yeah.
I think it's a generation thing. Either you can do it or you can't do it. So, I mean, I can weld, but he can weld like it looks like it's been welded by a professional. I can weld. It looks like it's been welded by a monkey.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit like on the odd occasion I have an attempt and you think, right, well done, we'll take it all apart, clean it up and do it properly.
That's it, yes, exactly. So I made, we made a hooped frame on it, and then I covered it with a very thin aluminium sheet. It's actually, in technical terms, if people want to get boring, it's a 1.2 mil thick aluminium sheet, which was the thinnest, lightest aluminium I could get.
Yeah.
Because the whole basics, the very start of the build, obviously where I started from, what I should have said was, my actual outlook at the start was to make it very light and simple.
Yeah.
Because I thought, if I make it light, it's going to obviously go better. And if I keep it simple, it's going to be easier to repair when anything goes wrong.
Yeah. So now it's completed, of course, it's a single-seater. Anybody who follows you on Facebook will have noticed that with great glee you took it out for a test run.
I did, yes. I'm lucky enough to have a little private lane near where I live, so a bit bumpy and it was a bit wet. But yes, it pulls along. I couldn't obviously give it any sort of racing speeds, but I certainly got up into top gear, and it drove along fairly well, actually. Yes, very pleased.
So you're happy with the end result? Because the other thing was, when I originally spoke to you about coming on the show, you said that your son has slightly lost interest in it a little bit, but after having a go, he's very enthusiastic, which is interesting because he now works within the world of motor racing.
That's correct, yes. He works for a company called United Motorsports, and actually at the moment, as we speak, he's down in Monza with the team. They're racing down there this week. So he, after having a lifetime of vintage car racing with me, I mean, he's like me. He's been coming to these meetings and he's been helping me since he was a babe in arms. Yeah. And I believe you spoke to Tanya Brown.
Yes, Tanya was a guest on the show a few weeks ago. She was a bit reluctant about coming on, and I said, "Don't worry." And basically, with to shut her up, with to knock the microphones off, she went.
Well, Tanya very kindly, because obviously she's now the secretary of the VSCC, but back in the day, well, I say going back 18 years now, or 17 years, she was also obviously working with the VSCC, but she used to be the paddock organiser and organised all the drivers and everybody in the paddocks at meetings. So whilst I was racing the Riley, Ben was in a pushchair, or later on was a toddler, and she used to sit on him and stop him getting in the way while I was on the track. So Ben's been going a long time. But then he, obviously, you say, got involved with United Autosports, which is a brilliant option, thing for him to be doing. And he's been all over the world at the moment with the racing team. They just came back from Le Mans, which they won. They won Le Mans a couple of weeks ago, and the championship. So it was full of that. So he's been playing with all these lovely, big, expensive, modern racing cars. And yes, I think he lost a little bit of the vision of the vintage car. Yeah. But now he's driven it. He came back on Saturday when we drove it. With the biggest grin on his face. I won't say exactly what he said, but it was on the lines of, "Dad, that goes very fast." Yeah. There's another word in between that, which I can't put on the radio. It wasn't very.
But it's one of those things, if you talk to a lot of people in motor racing, in modern motor racing, it's surprising how many of them in their spare time or in their off time are keen on vintage cars and vintage racing. It seems to be it's the complete antithesis of the world that they work in, but it takes them back to what motor racing used to be.
Exactly, yes. And I think, even just going back to like the sort of the 1980s, I used to watch the Formula One. I must admit, I'll be honest, I don't particularly follow Formula One these days.
Nor do I. I now find it rivetingly boring. Exactly. There isn't a driver with an iota of character. They're all PR controlled. They don't say a thing without a team round them telling them what they can and cannot say. But back then, 60s, 70s, 80s, the drivers used to say it as it is. Those guys really could drive cars. And after they'd finished racing, fair enough, most of them were playboys. They lived a lifestyle that most of us would have given the right arms to be having.
Exactly, yes. I mean, in the days when you had old Murray Walker doing the commentary and all that sort of stuff, that was proper racing going on. It's as you say, the corporates have taken over it now to a certain extent. But the vintage racing and the classic racing, you're driving the car. You're in the car as part of you. You get in the car and put it on.
Yeah. The other thing about it, but it's like all vintage cars or whatever. I mean, most of my listeners know that my toy, for want of a better term, is a Morgan 4.4. And somebody said to me, "What is it about that car that you like?" I said, "Well, fair enough." I said, "It has a modern Ford Z-Tech engine up front." I said, "But the car is inherently a 70-odd-year-old design." I said, "It's still a vintage car to drive." I said, "And it does nothing for you. You have got to drive it. You have got to make it do what you want it to do." And I think that's the thing about vintage cars. They don't help the driver. The driver has to send them on.
Exactly. Yes. You have to feel your way, around the corners and that sort of thing, and you're listening to the car all the time because the slightest change of note, you just think that's not right.
Yeah.
You know something's wrong because you can sense it, feel it, hear it. So it's more of an experience than driving something modern.
And the other thing is as well, you look at vintage cars, and these days everybody talks about these great vast tyres that cars have on them and everything else. And you look at an Austin 7, and most Austin 7s run on what inherently are motorbike sidecar tyres.
That's correct, yes, that's right. But again, the other weekend, obviously, it was with the Riley, because I couldn't take the Austin yet, but I was at Shelsley Welsh Hill Climb.
Yeah.
And the Riley was doing pretty well. I mean, I climbed in just over 40 seconds, which for a vintage car, isn't it, 1100, is a pretty good time.
Yeah.
But then you look at the modern cars, and they're doing it like in half that time. You just think they can stop themselves on a sixpence.
Yeah.
With their brakes and tyres. It's a different world. It's a completely different sort of beast.
And the other thing is, like we said about the tyres, I mean, the only thing a tyre does on a vintage car is, shall we say, give it something more pliant to run on, because if you look at a vintage car's tyres, they don't really offer a great deal in the way of grip. They're too narrow to offer much in the way of grip. That's
right, yes. I mean, you kind of, certainly with the more powerful cars, you sort of steer them with the rear wheels, you do let it slide about a bit. It's the only way you can do it, really.
But, I mean, have you any other projects lined up? Has your lad got the bug back? Is he eyeing anything else up? Is he eyeing up your Riley?
Well, he definitely wants to drive the Riley. The Riley, at the moment, it actually still belongs to my father.
Yeah.
Who's obviously still with us, thankfully. But Dad has said he can drive it. We're hoping. I mean, I've only ever done hill climbs and sprints for many, many years. So my competition licence I've got is sort of restricted for just hill climbs and sprints. So I haven't actually got a full circuit licence. Neither has Ben, my son. So, but we decided it's over the after Christmas and in the early New Year, we're going to both go and take our ARDS test, which allows us to then upgrade our licences to racing licences. And then we're going to both be able to start racing. And then when Ben then has his upgraded licence, he would then be allowed to use the Riley on the hill climbs and sprints.
Yeah.
So he'll definitely be out in that next year, I'm sure.
Right. Do you intend doing any trials? Do you fancy going back to any trialling?
I would quite like to. We did dabble back in. I mean, you saw that photograph I sent you. I know photographs are very good for radio, but the photograph I sent you the other day with the little blue Singer number 20.
Yeah.
That was a trials car that I built. So again, going back to the photos I sent you, the other Singer I've got, the red and black Singer Junior. Yeah. That was the second car I ever brought. I bought that back in 1988.
Yeah.
That was my only car. I drove to work and everything. I met my wife in that car. And was courted her in that car, and amazingly enough, she's still with me. But the car is still with me, and my wife's still with me. But the Singer Junior at the time was quite rare, so I started saving up, going to various auto jumbles, what have you, saving spare parts and what have you. And looked in the garage one day and thought, I've got an engine, gearbox, chassis, front rear axles. So I built the trials car then.
Yeah.
With the help of my father. We used to trials that a lot. And then I was made an offer to sell it, which I couldn't refuse, so I sold it and built the Morris. But then my father also built another Morris at the same time, so we trialled that.
Yeah.
And he sold his Morris, but I've still got my Morris, the green one. And Ben actually trialled it the year before last. We did the Cotswold trial with it.
All right.
based in Prescott. And we did okay right up, and we did 3/4 of the day, and then the clutch went.
Yeah.
It's a cork clutch. We retired, but I'm actually seriously thinking about going back to it again now. We were going to go back to this year, but of course with COVID and everything else, they're all cancelled again at the moment.
Yeah.
The vast majority. So I think I will. I would quite like to get back into trials with either with Ben or anybody else wants to come in the car.
Well, the beauty of trials is, especially if you were on the 4-seater, you can take the entire family with you, can't you? Because everybody can bounce.
Exactly, yes. I mean, and the good thing with trials is it's a very good value for money. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love doing the racing, but it's obviously not the cheapest of hobbies to do. Whereas trialling, you pay, well, last time I did it was about 50 quid for the day.
Yeah. And
you get a whole day's vintage motoring, and as you say, you get to meet lots of people and have a sandwich in a pub, and it's good fun. It's a good day out.
And in many ways, you're still, apart from the ones that have had to be altered or things like that, you're still driving up the trials hills that they've driven up the trials hills for from like 1920s. You're still recreating the original routes.
Exactly, yes. I mean, you obviously take the Lakeland and trial and what have you, driving up Drumhouse. I mean, they've been doing that for donkey's years, and there was another hill there called the Smatcher, which has been, I think that's been around one of the first trials hills ever, as you say, since the day of trialling, basically.
But, no, Mark Purnell, it's been absolutely fascinating chatting to you. Thank you very much indeed. I'm hoping, I've said that one day I would like to build an Austin 7 Special. The problem is I'm not overly mechanically minded, but it is something that I hope one day to do. Even if I don't really do anything with it, I will still like to drive one, because they are fascinating little cars in their own way. I mean, as a friend of mine said, he said, I can remember as a kid, he said, seeing them on garage forecourts for £10 second and third and fourth hand. And now they've got a phenomenal and ever-increasing following of the Austin 7s.
That's right, yes. They are very popular.
But once again, Mark Purnell, thank you very much for joining me on the Backseat Driver Radio Show. It's been fascinating chatting to you. All the best to yourself and your lad, and at some point in time, I'm hoping that I will be stood at the hill climb side watching you come past in the Austin 7 and the Riley. But once again, Mark Purnell, thanks very much for joining me.
Well, I was about to say, if we can get to Harewood next year, because I know that's pretty close to you, if I can get up to Harewood next year, you can have a little drive in either the Riley or the Austin round the paddock.
Thank you very much indeed. Once again, Mark Purnell, thanks very much for joining me on the Backseat Driver Radio Show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Rarely beaten on price, never beaten on service. Whether it's cars, bikes or commercials, Hoddy Tyres are the best in the business. And when it comes to tyre expertise and advice to supplying the correct tyres for your vehicle's specific requirements, nobody comes close to David Lakin and the Hoddy Tyres team. So give them a call on 01200 613 192 or visit the website at hoddytyres.co.uk.